the situation in DRC, it is already...
If you think you have had a rough day, spare a thought for Kenyan President William Ruto, who is currently being roasted, deep-fried and flambéed, not just by Kenyans, but an entire continent of angry Africans.
The escalating conflict and deteriorating situation in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo.
His crime? A single Twitter statement on the M23 crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Cette situation se détériore de...
In an attempt to flex his big brother muscles, President Ruto waded into the murky waters of the Rwanda-DRC conflict, calling for an immediate and unconditional cessation of hostilities between M23 rebels, widely believed to be backed by Rwanda and President Felix Tshisekedi's government.
I emphasize the obligation of all parties to facilitate humanitarian access to affected populations and urge both sides to pursue peaceful means to resolving this tragic conflict.
As the current chair of the East African Community, Ruto took it upon himself to act as the region's peacemaker, urging both sides to prioritize dialogue and humanitarian access while announcing an extraordinary summit within 48 hours to discuss a resolution.
As the current chair of the East African Community, Kenya is aware of the region's critical responsibility in de-escalating violence and facilitating dialogue between the parties involved. We confirm and firmly believe that a sustainable solution can only be achieved through engagement, constructive dialogue, and a renewed commitment to peace.
Sounds noble, right? At first, praises flooded in. Some lauded President Ruto as a true Pan-Africanist, a leader stepping up when others watched in silence. His call for peace seemed like the responsible thing to do. After all, a burning DRC is a threat to the entire East African region. But before the applause could settle, the accusations started flying, and the internet did what the internet does best: dissect, speculate, and unleash hellfire. A growing section of Africans, especially Congolese netizens, read between the lines and concluded that President Ruto's carefully worded statement was a veiled endorsement of Rwanda's role in the conflict. To them, his failure to explicitly condemn Kigali for allegedly backing M23 was a proof of bias, and that's when the digital guillotine dropped. For many Congolese, Rwanda's fingerprints on M23's resurgence are as clear as daylight. United Nations reports, intelligence leaks, and eyewitness accounts have repeatedly accused Kigali of arming, funding, and strategizing with the rebels. So when Ruto's statement failed to name Kagame or Rwanda outright, a section of Africans felt he was deliberately playing both sides, or worse, backing Rwanda's strategic interests at DRC's expense. The Congolese Twitter sphere exploded, accusing Ruto of siding with Rwanda while pretending to be neutral, undermining the Congolese people's suffering by equating both sides, attempting to sanitize Kagame's role in the conflict. And in typical African social media fashion, memes, insults, and conspiracy theories followed swiftly.
The African Union must not remain passive.
All was well with his statement on the Democratic Republic of Congo until he made one fatal error, dragging French President Emmanuel Macron in the mess. And that's when the internet turned into a battleground with Pan-Africanist keyboard warriors and geopolitics enthusiasts all coming for Ruto's head. The backlash was swift, brutal, and unforgiving. It was as if someone had injected the internet with a high-voltage current, sparking rage even from people who had been minding their own businesses. You have been irresponsible in this matter. Your appeal no longer makes any sense because you had sufficient opportunity to act. Unfortunately, you have sided with Rwanda, which has never been threatened in any way. At the same time, you are ridiculing the DRC, which is the victim of an odious ploy aimed at upsetting its social-political configuration. You speak on behalf of the regional community when you have demonstrated a compromising position. Start by condemning the aggressor if you want to be credible. Put yourself for a moment in the shoes of the DRC and its people. What justifies this situation? Nothing. One commented on President Ruto's statements. In his now infamous statement, President Ruto proudly declared, "I have spoken to President Emmanuel Macron of France on the situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. He has expressed support for the regional efforts to deal with the challenge." President Macron also committed his country's support for the interventions being carried out and for Kenya's participation in other peace initiatives in Somalia, Sudan, and Southern Sudan. I know this statement sounds diplomatic enough, right? Well, I guess you are wrong. While President Ruto may have thought he was flexing his global statesmanship, many Africans saw it differently, a tone-deaf, ill-advised, and outright embarrassing move. For many in Francophone Africa, Macron's name is synonymous with neo-colonial interference. From Mali to Burkina Faso, France has been accused of propping up weak regimes, fueling conflicts and exploiting Africa's vast mineral resources under the guise of stability. In Congo, this resentment runs even deeper. The French government has long been accused of backing rebel groups, orchestrating chaos and looting DRC's minerals to keep its industries well fed while Congolese people suffer. So when President Ruto decided to proudly name-drop Macron, it was seen as an insult to everything Pan-Africanists have been fighting against. The reactions were merciless. Calling Museveni or Kagame should have been more useful and helpful than calling Macron. Are you not the same person who told us Africans could solve their own problems? Which part of Africa is Macron from? One commented, "It is disappointing to see an African president discussing the affairs of an African country with a European leader. Shame on you and all those who claim to be Pan-Africanists." And then came the satirical missiles. So Ruto has decided to disgrace us internationally. As he spoke to Macron, even Francophone Africa is ditching France, but Ruto ako kuramba, he's going backward. He bought land in Congo, planted maize and smuggling gold. That's why our KDF was sent to DRC to guard Ruto's maize, not to keep peace.
Actuellement, il faut générer des unités.
Many critics compared Ruto's foreign policy approach to that of Burkina Faso's young firebrand leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Since taking power, Traoré has kicked out French troops, shut down French military bases, and severed ties with France, declaring that Africa must solve its own problems without foreign interference.
2024, notamment en termes de matériel médical.
His defiance has made him a symbol of Pan-African resistance, while Ruto's Macron moment has made him look like a Western puppet dancing to colonial tunes.
Only be achieved through engagement.
Just when President Ruto thought things couldn't get worse, DRC President Felix Tshisekedi decided to throw another punch. Despite Ruto's attempt to broker a meeting between himself, Tshisekedi, and the Rwandan President Paul Kagame, Tshisekedi refused, citing scheduling issues, or as many believe, pure frustration with Ruto's handling of the situation. Tshisekedi has long accused Rwanda of backing M23 rebels, and instead of pressuring Kagame, President Ruto decided to chat with Macron, a move that might have completely dismantled Kenya's credibility in the DRC peace process.